The world watches, horrified, as conflicts erupt, lives are shattered, and nations are brought to their knees. We see the bombings, the refugees, the suffering, and we are told tales of ideology, liberation, and national security. But beneath this tragic surface, there is a colder, more calculating reality at play: the secret business of war. For some, war is not a necessary evil, but an incredibly lucrative enterprise, a complex economic machine designed to enrich elites and systematically dismantle the very fabric of nations. This isn't a theory about shadowy figures in smoke-filled rooms, but an observable, historical pattern, a deeply embedded economic architecture that transforms human suffering into profit. From ancient empires built on plunder to the modern military-industrial complex, the threads of war and wealth are inextricably interwoven. Today we will pull back the curtain on this dark economy, exposing how conflict in its raw, brutal form has become one of the most profitable ventures known to humanity, leaving behind a trail of devastation for the many and immense fortunes for the few. To truly understand this, we must cast aside romanticized notions of glory and patriotism and look at war through the lens of a ledger book. Historically, war has always been an economic engine. Ancient empires did not expand merely for pride. They sought fertile lands, valuable resources like gold and silver, strategic trade routes, and human labor to fuel their economies. Conquest meant access to new markets, new tax bases, and a fresh supply of slaves or tribute. The spoils of war were literal, tangible assets that directly enriched the conquering power and its ruling class. Think of the Roman Empire, whose legions were often self-financing through plunder, or the Mongol hordes whose conquests opened vast trade networks and demanded tribute that flowed directly to the Khans. Even early forms of statecraft saw the king's treasury swell with the spoils of successful campaigns. As societies evolved, so did the financial mechanisms of war. Mercenary armies, funded by kings and merchant republics, became commonplace, indicating a commercial transaction at the heart of military might. The Italian city-states, for instance, often hired condottieri professional soldiers whose loyalty was bought, not born, reflecting a clear cost-benefit analysis in their employment. The very infrastructure of warfare weapons, armor, siege engines became industries in themselves, creating demand and driving technological innovation, always with an eye on profit. This nascent arms trade, while rudimentary by today's standards, laid the groundwork for the colossal industry we know today. The transition from feudal levies to standing armies required consistent financing, leading to the development of sophisticated taxation systems, national debts, and the rise of powerful banking families who lent vast sums to warring monarchs. The Rothschilds, for example, famously made a fortune financing wars across Europe in the 18th and 19th centuries, understanding that conflict created both risk and unparalleled opportunity. This period cemented the idea that war, far from being an aberration, could be a sustained economic activity requiring capital, investment, and a return. The seeds of the modern military-industrial complex were sown in these early transactions, where the pursuit of power and the pursuit of profit became increasingly intertwined. The fundamental calculus remained: how can conflict yield economic advantage? The answer, then as now, often involves the systematic extraction of wealth, resources, and influence concentrated at the top, while the costs are externalized onto the general populace and the battle-scarred landscape. The term military-industrial complex was famously coined by President Dwight D. Eisenhower in his farewell address in 1961. He warned of the unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex, a profound and prescient observation from a former five-star general. Eisenhower understood the dangerous synergy between a massive military establishment and a large armaments industry, recognizing its potential to exert undue pressure on government policy. He saw how the continuous demand for advanced weaponry fueled by geopolitical tensions could create a self-perpetuating cycle in which the economic interests of defense contractors and the strategic interests of the military would merge potentially, overshadowing the true needs of the nation and pushing toward conflict rather than peace. In the post-World War II era, and especially during the Cold War, Eisenhower's warning became a stark reality. The global ideological struggle between the United States and the Soviet Union created an unprecedented demand for military hardware, intelligence capability, giving birth to corporate giants like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and General Dynamics. These companies, driven by profit motives, became deeply entrenched in the national security apparatus. They invested heavily in research and development, constantly innovating new weapon systems from intercontinental ballistic missiles to stealth bombers, each new iteration more expensive and complex than the last. The symbiotic relationship between these defense corporations and the government is multifaceted. Government contracts are the lifeblood of these companies, guaranteeing massive revenues and stable growth. In turn, these corporations become powerful lobbyists, pouring millions into political campaigns and employing former high-ranking military officials and politicians. This revolving door phenomenon sees generals and admirals retire from service only to take lucrative positions on the boards of defense contractors, bringing with them invaluable connections, knowledge of future procurement needs, and subtle influence over policy decisions. This creates a powerful feedback loop. Geopolitical tensions justify increased defense spending, which enriches defense contractors, who then lobby for policies that maintain or escalate those tensions, ensuring a continuous flow of contracts. The scale of this industry is staggering. Global military expenditure reached an estimated $2.2 trillion in 2022, an all-time high, with the United States alone accounting for over a third of that. A significant portion of this goes directly to these defense contractors. Their profits are immense, often insulated from typical market risks due to government guarantees and long-term contracts. When conflicts erupt, their stock prices surge, reflecting the market's expectation of increased demand for their products. This reality turns human conflict into a financial boon for shareholders and executives. Perverse incentive structure where instability translates directly into economic gain. The military-industrial complex, therefore, is not just a collection of companies. It's a powerful economic and political force that actively shapes global affairs, often with an inherent bias toward military solutions over diplomatic ones, because military solutions are undeniably more profitable. Beyond the direct profits from arms sales, the control and exploitation of resources stand as one of the oldest and most enduring economic drivers of war. Historically, empires were built on the acquisition of fertile land, precious metals, and strategic trade routes. In the modern era, this quest has become more sophisticated but no less brutal, centered predominantly on vital energy resources and rare minerals. Oil, undoubtedly, is the quintessential resource that has fueled geopolitical conflicts for over a century. The Middle East, with its vast petroleum reserves, has been a perpetual flashpoint, drawing in global powers whose economies are utterly dependent on a stable and affordable supply of crude. From the Sykes-Picot Agreement defining spheres of influence after World War I to the various interventions in Iraq, Libya, and Syria, the narrative of democracy or national security often masks a deeper, more fundamental struggle for energy dominance. Control over oil fields, pipelines, and shipping lanes translates directly into economic power and strategic leverage. Multinational corporations, often backed by their respective governments, play a critical role in these resource-rich regions, their operations intertwined with the political stability or instability of the host nations. The profits generated from these resources are astronomical, flowing into the coffers of both state-owned companies and private giants, and their security often becomes a casus belli. But oil is not the only prize. The modern technological age has ushered in a new scramble for critical minerals. Coltan, used in cell phones and electronics, has fueled devastating conflicts in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Diamonds have notoriously financed civil wars in Sierra Leone and Angola, leading to the term blood diamonds. Rare earth elements, essential for everything from electric vehicles to advanced military technology, are increasingly becoming a point of contention, particularly as global supply chains become more fragile. These minerals are often found in politically unstable regions, making their extraction and trade ripe for exploitation by warlords, corrupt governments, and opportunistic multinational corporations. The competition for these resources can exacerbate existing ethnic tensions, fund insurgent groups, and prolong conflicts, all while a select few profit immensely from the supply chain of these vital materials. Beyond material resources, strategic geographical locations like control over key waterways, choke points in global trade. Or, access to vital ports also serve as powerful economic incentives for military intervention. The South China Sea, for example, is not only rich in potential oil and gas reserves, but also serves as a crucial artery for global shipping, making its control a strategic imperative for several nations. The economic benefits of securing these locations, whether for trade, resource extraction, or military projection, are undeniable and often outweigh the stated humanitarian or security concerns. The cycle is clear. Resource-rich regions are often prone to instability. This instability creates opportunities for external intervention or the funding of proxies. Conflict then enables easier access or control over these resources, often at favorable terms for the intervening powers or corporations. The local populations, meanwhile, bear the brunt of the violence, their natural wealth plundered, and their nations left in tatters, while the profits flow far away into the hands of those who orchestrate and benefit from the chaos. This systematic exploitation highlights a grim truth. The Earth's bounty, instead of being a blessing, often becomes a curse for those who live on it, attracting the predatory gaze of global economic powers. War, at its core, is a massively expensive undertaking. Yet, it continues. This paradox is resolved when we examine the intricate financial architecture that underpins global conflict, revealing how wars are not merely financed, but are themselves generators of immense wealth for a specific class of financial elites. Historically, wars have been funded through taxation, plunder, and borrowing. In the modern era, the latter has become paramount. Governments issue war bonds or borrow directly from domestic and international financial institutions to cover the monumental costs of military campaigns. While citizens might purchase war bonds out of patriotic duty, the large-scale lending comes from powerful banks and investment firms. These institutions lend at interest often substantial, turning national emergencies into guaranteed revenue streams. The more prolonged and expensive the conflict, the greater the interest accumulated and the larger the profits for these lenders. This creates a powerful incentive within the financial sector to not necessarily prevent conflict, but to facilitate its funding. Consider the aftermath of a major conflict. Nations are devastated, their infrastructure in ruins. This presents another colossal opportunity for profit, reconstruction. While presented as humanitarian aid or developmental assistance, reconstruction efforts are often financed by international loans again, with interest. These loans are frequently tied to contracts awarded to specific corporations, often from the creditor nations themselves. Roads, bridges, hospitals, and entire cities need rebuilding, creating massive contracts for construction firms, engineering companies, and suppliers of raw materials. This disaster capitalism, as Naomi Klein termed it, describes how crises including wars are leveraged to implement radical, free market policies and generate enormous profits for a select few corporations and investors under the guise of recovery. The money often flows back to the donor countries and their corporations, leaving the war-torn nation saddled with immense debt and dependency. The financial ripple effects of war extend further. Capital flight, illicit financial flows, and the manipulation of local currencies during periods of instability can create opportunities for speculative investors. As local economies collapse, assets can be acquired at fire sale prices by foreign entities. The chaos of conflict also provides cover for money laundering and the financing of illicit activities, further integrating elements of the shadow economy into the wartime financial landscape. Offshore accounts and complex corporate structures are often employed to hide the true beneficiaries of these transactions, blurring the lines between legitimate business and war profiteering. International financial institutions like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank also play a significant, albeit complex, role. While their stated mission is to promote global financial stability and development, their post-conflict lending often comes with stringent conditions known as structural adjustment programs. These conditions can include privatization of state assets, deregulation, and austerity measures, which, while sometimes necessary, can also open up national economies to greater foreign control and exploitation, further concentrating wealth and power in the hands of global capital rather than benefiting the local populace. In essence, war creates a massive transfer of wealth. It shifts public funds into private hands through defense contracts and loans. It generates new markets for reconstruction and resource exploitation. It consolidates power and assets in the hands of those with the capital and connections to navigate the chaos. For the financial elite, war is not just a destructive force. It is a meticulously managed economic opportunity, a grand, albeit tragic investment strategy where the ultimate returns are measured in billions, even trillions, at the expense of human lives and national sovereignty. The nature of warfare has undergone a significant transformation marked by the increasing privatization of violence. In recent decades, the role of private military companies, PMCs, and private security contractors, PSCs, has exploded, creating a multi-billion-dollar industry that operates in the shadows of conventional military operations. This trend blurs the lines between state power and corporate interests, creating a lucrative, yet often unregulated, sector within the secret business of war. Historically, mercenaries have always existed, but the modern PMC is a far more sophisticated entity. Companies like Blackwater, now Academy, DynCorp International, and G4S provide a vast array of services: armed security, logistics, intelligence gathering, training of local forces, maintenance of weapon systems, and even direct combat support. These services are contracted by governments, intergovernmental organizations, multinational corporations, and even wealthy individuals, particularly in conflict zones or unstable regions. The appeal for governments is clear. PMCs offer flexibility, deniability, and can operate with less political scrutiny than uniformed military personnel. They are not subject to the same casualty counts and public reports, and their employment can sidestep political constraints on troop deployments. The financial implications of this privatization are enormous. Governments pay PMCs billions of dollars annually for their services. For instance, during the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, the number of private contractors often exceeded that of uniformed soldiers, and their costs ran into the tens of billions of dollars. These companies, in turn, recruit personnel from around the world, often former soldiers from Western militaries, offering significantly higher salaries than conventional forces. This creates a global market for skilled violence where military expertise becomes a commodity. However, the lack of transparency and accountability is a major concern. PMCs operate under different legal frameworks than national armies, often enjoying immunity from prosecution in the host countries where they operate. Incidents like the Niser Square massacre in Iraq, where Blackwater Guards killed Iraqi civilians, highlighted the severe accountability gaps. While the individuals involved were eventually prosecuted in the U.S., such cases are rare, and the corporations themselves often face little long-term repercussion, continuing to secure lucrative contracts. This opacity allows for potential human rights abuses, excessive force, and the fueling of conflicts without direct government oversight or public awareness. Furthermore, the integration of PMCs into military operations creates a complex web of dependencies. Governments become reliant on private contractors for essential services, making it harder to withdraw from conflicts. The profit motive of PMCs can also subtly influence the duration and scope of conflicts. A prolonged engagement means more contracts and greater revenue. This dynamic contributes to the perpetuation of conflict, as the economic interests of these companies align with sustained instability rather than swift resolution. The rise of PMCs also represents a shift in the nature of military power. It allows states to project force and influence without the full political and social commitment required for traditional military deployments. It also creates a powerful, private military class whose interests are distinct from, yet deeply intertwined with national defense. This privatization of violence is a critical component of the secret business of war, demonstrating how even the direct application of force has been commodified and financialized, enriching a specialized segment of elites while further complicating the pursuit of peace and accountability. So who truly benefits from this secret business of war? It's not the soldiers on the front lines, nor the civilians caught in the crossfire. The beneficiaries are a select group of elites operating at the intersection of finance, industry, and politics, individuals uniquely positioned to profit from conflict and instability. At the forefront are the shareholders and executives of defense corporations. When geopolitical tensions rise or a new conflict erupts, the stock prices of companies like the executives of these companies earn multi-million-dollar salaries and bonuses, often tied to the company's performance, which in turn is heavily dependent on government contracts. Their shareholders, ranging from individual investors to large institutional funds, see their portfolios grow, creating a direct financial incentive for a perpetual state of readiness or even outright conflict. These are the individuals and entities that see war as a growth sector. Then there are the financial institutions and investment bankers. As discussed, wars are expensive, and governments often finance them through borrowing. Major banks and investment firms underwrite government bonds, lend directly to nations, and profit from the interest and fees associated with these transactions. They also manage the vast wealth generated by the defense industry and the individuals who profit from it. Furthermore, financial elites can engage in speculative trading on commodities like oil and gas, which often see price volatility during conflicts, allowing them to make fortunes from market fluctuations driven by war. The reconstruction phase post-conflict also presents immense opportunities for financial institutions to lend for rebuilding efforts again, at interest, creating long-term debt for the affected nations. Politicians and government officials with vested interests also form a critical part of this elite. The revolving door phenomenon ensures that many former high-ranking military and defense officials transition into lucrative roles within defense companies or lobbying firms. This creates a powerful network of influence. where individuals who once made policy decisions or procurement choices now advise or work for the very companies that benefit from those decisions. Campaign contributions from defense contractors and lobbyists further entrench this relationship, creating a system where political careers can be advanced through alignment with the military-industrial complex. This isn't necessarily overt corruption in every case, but a systemic arrangement where personal wealth and political power become intertwined with the perpetuation of the defense industry. Lobbyists and think tanks play a crucial, often underappreciated, role. They are the intellectual and political architects shaping public opinion and government policy to favor military solutions and increase defense spending. Funded by defense contractors and aligned with hawkish political factions, these organizations produce reports, policy recommendations, and media appearances that advocate for interventions, arms sales, and a robust military posture. Their influence ensures that the narrative often leans toward conflict as a necessary tool rather than a last resort, thereby sustaining the economic engine of war. Finally, there are the opportunistic entrepreneurs and private contractors who thrive in the chaos of war zones. From private military companies providing security and logistics to businesses involved in resource extraction, reconstruction, or illicit trade, a whole ecosystem of private enterprise flourishes amidst conflict. These individuals and companies often operate with less oversight and greater impunity, generating substantial profits from the instability. This concentration of wealth during times of conflict is a stark illustration of disaster capitalism. While the majority of a nation's populace suffers the economic and human costs of war, a small, interconnected group of elites leverages the chaos, the destruction, and the perceived necessity of conflict to expand their fortunes and consolidate their power. The system is designed to funnel resources upward away from the general public and into the hands of those who stand to gain the most from global instability. While a select few elites reap immense profits from the business of war, the overwhelming cost is borne by the nations and populations caught in its destructive path. The devastation wrought by conflict extends far beyond immediate casualties, leaving deep, festering wounds that can take generations if ever to heal, fundamentally destroying the fabric of societies and economies. The most immediate and tragic cost is the human toll. Lives are lost, not just soldiers, but countless civilians, men, women, and children. Millions are displaced, becoming refugees or internally displaced persons, forced to abandon their homes, livelihoods, and communities. Those who survive often carry profound physical and psychological scars, injuries, disabilities, post-traumatic stress disorder, and enduring trauma that impacts entire generations. This loss of human capital, both through death and injury, represents an irreplaceable drain on a nation's productive capacity and its future potential. Infrastructure destruction is another colossal economic blow. Factories, roads, bridges, power grids, hospitals, schools, and homes are reduced to rubble. This isn't just a loss of physical assets. It's the dismantling of the very foundations of an economy. Production ceases, supply chains are severed, essential services collapse, and the ability of a nation to function normally is severely impaired. The cost of rebuilding this infrastructure is astronomical, often running into hundreds of billions or even trillions of dollars, a burden typically financed through international loans that plunge the war-torn nation into crippling debt. This debt, in turn, diverts future resources away from development and social welfare toward interest payments, perpetuating a cycle of dependency. The loss of human capital extends beyond direct casualties. War often triggers a brain drain where educated professionals, skilled workers, and entrepreneurs flee the conflict, seeking safety and opportunity elsewhere. This exodus strips the nation of its intellectual and managerial capacity, making post-conflict recovery even more challenging. The education system is disrupted, creating a lost generation of children who miss out on schooling, further hindering long-term development. The social fabric of a nation is torn apart. Trust between communities erodes, ethnic and religious divisions are exacerbated, and the rule of law often collapses. This creates fertile ground for organized crime, corruption, and the rise of extremist ideologies, leading to prolonged instability and cycles of violence. Social fragmentation makes it incredibly difficult to rebuild a cohesive society and establish effective governance, essential prerequisites for economic recovery. The psychological trauma of war can manifest in increased rates of domestic violence, substance abuse, and mental health crises, further straining social services and undermining community resilience. Economic dependency becomes a tragic consequence. Nations ravaged by war often become reliant on foreign aid, loans, and external powers for security and reconstruction. This dependency can compromise their sovereignty, dictate their economic policies, and make them vulnerable to external manipulation, effectively turning them into client states. The terms of aid and loans often favor the donor nation's corporations, ensuring that much of the money flows back out rather than staying to build sustainable local economies. Finally, the environmental degradation caused by war is often overlooked. Bombings, chemical weapon use, scorched earth tactics, and the sheer movement of military machinery can destroy ecosystems, contaminate land and water sources, and lead to long-term health problems for populations. The depletion of natural resources to fuel war efforts further exacerbates environmental issues, creating another layer of long-term cost. In stark contrast to the concentrated wealth accumulated by elites, nations caught in the grip of war experience widespread impoverishment, social decay, and a profound loss of future potential. The destruction is systemic, designed not just to defeat an enemy, but to dismantle its capacity for self-sufficiency, leaving it vulnerable to external economic and political influence. This is the tragic, enduring legacy of the secret business of war: immense profit for a few, and systemic destruction for the many. We have journeyed through the intricate and often horrifying landscape of the secret business of war, peeling back the layers of rhetoric and ideology to reveal the cold, calculated economic realities that often drive conflict. We've seen how, from ancient times, war has been an instrument of wealth transfer from plunder and tribute to the sophisticated financial engineering of today. The military-industrial complex, as warned by Eisenhower, is not merely a collection of defense contractors. It is a powerful economic and political force, a self-perpetuating engine of demand for weaponry and military solutions. Its symbiotic relationship with government ensures a continuous flow of contracts and profits, making global instability a financial boon for shareholders and executives. We explored resource wars, where the insatiable global demand for oil, rare minerals, and strategic control over trade routes fuels conflicts in resource-rich but often politically fragile regions. The extraction of these vital commodities often comes at the cost of local populations whose wealth is plundered, whose environments are destroyed, and whose nations are left in perpetual conflict, while multinational corporations and their backers reap immense profits. The financial architecture of war revealed how banks and financial institutions profit from lending to warring nations, underwriting war bonds, and then capitalizing on the immensely lucrative, albeit debt-inducing, process of post-conflict reconstruction. This disaster capitalism transforms human suffering into investment opportunities, consolidating wealth in the hands of global financial elites. And the rise of private military companies further privatizes violence, offering deniability and flexibility to states while creating a multi-billion-dollar industry of highly paid contractors operating with reduced accountability, often blurring ethical and legal lines in their pursuit of profit from conflict zones. Ultimately, the beneficiaries are a concentrated group of elites: the shareholders and executives of defense companies, the financiers and investment bankers who underwrite government debt, the politicians and lobbyists with vested interests, and the opportunistic entrepreneurs who thrive in the chaos of war. For this select few, war is not a tragedy but a meticulously managed economic opportunity, a grand, albeit morally bankrupt, investment strategy. In stark contrast, the cost is borne by nations and their populations. The human toll of lives lost, displaced, and traumatized is immeasurable. Infrastructure is shattered, economies collapse, and nations are plunged into crippling debt and long-term dependency. Human capital is lost through brain drain, social fabrics are torn, and the environment is devastated. The systemic destruction ensures that the affected nations struggle for generations, their potential for self-sufficiency and prosperity severely undermined. The truth is stark: peace, for many, is simply not as profitable as conflict. Understanding this hidden dynamic is not about cynicism, but about critical awareness. It is about recognizing that beneath the geopolitical rhetoric, there often lies a powerful economic imperative driving the gears of war. Until we fully confront and dismantle this secret business, the cycle of enrichment for elites and destruction for nations will continue. True peace requires not just diplomatic efforts, but a fundamental reordering of economic incentives and a profound commitment to accountability for those who profit from human suffering. If this exploration into the economic underbelly of war has provoked your thoughts and shed new light on the mechanisms of global conflict, please consider liking this video, sharing it with others, and subscribing to our channel for more in-depth analyses. Your engagement helps us continue to uncover these critical truths and foster a more informed understanding of the forces shaping our world. Thank you for watching.